And happy holidays, everybody. Welcome to our next installment of Court Talk with NC State women's basketball head coach Wes Moore. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. We're here at Backyard Bistro, the home of NC State, and we're glad to have you with us. Over the next couple of segments, we'll get you updated on where things stand with Wes Moore's women's basketball team, now in a conference play, a couple of games deep. But first off, let's talk about some resolutions for you and the family now that we're in 2016. What might those be?
Oh, I don't know. Let's win some games. That's the biggest resolution. But I don't know. I'm trying to be a little healthier, try to get a little exercise, whatever. And, just keep grinding away here. And hopefully this young team will keep maturing and getting better. And we can all have a happy Easter. How about that?
Well, when last we spoke, we were wrapping up non-conference play. Where's the team come from early December to where we are now? Certainly some bumps in the road, but some good wins along the way.
Yeah, we went down to Florida a couple of times and faced some teams that really get after you, full court press for 40 minutes, and we didn't always handle that well. We're still learning to value the ball a little bit. We got to take care of the basketball. We turned it over a little bit too much, and but our kids have shown some improvement the last couple of games, and obviously against Wake Forest on Sunday did a much better job. And so hopefully that's a trend we can continue. We're trying to look at it as this is a new season. Once we enter ACC play, it's a fresh start. And hopefully we can keep improving in some areas that we need to focus on.
I mean, you've seen this over your time as a head coach, especially with young teams. Losses can seem a whole lot more destructive than they really are, and wins can sometimes raise them to a point where they don't necessarily need to be. So is that a challenge for you and the coaching staff to keep them in the middle somewhere?
That sounds like my life right there, okay? Too many peaks and valleys. I need to learn to be more on an even keel. But, it's funny. The players, they get over a loss pretty quick. We were in the airport after losing at Florida. You're talking about a ranked team. We turned it over quite a few times, and still it was like a 5-point game in the last minute. So it was a tough loss to me. And a couple hours later in the airport, players are playing cards, and they seem to be oblivious to it, while I'm over there still dying. So they get over it a lot quicker than the coaches do. But that's something, again, probably that'd be a good New Year's resolution right there for me, is try to get over those losses a little bit quicker and try to keep things a little more positive because, again, I kind of live and die with every game, every possession for that matter.
I read a quote from the owner of the Phoenix Suns earlier today, talked about a millennial problem. It seems like that might be a millennial problem where everything is, you need that instant gratification, and maybe you don't wallow on things or digest things as much as people from other generations. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I don't know. My dentist says that I grind my teeth a lot in my sleep, so maybe that's it. I just a little bit too intense, I guess. But again, with a young team, I've got to try to find the positives and stay up so that they can do that as well. And, again, I think we're showing some progress, and hopefully that trend will continue.
All right, we'll get into some of the progress shown by NC State specifically as this show goes on. But just, I guess, generally speaking, now that we moved into ACC play, is there a different tenor among your players in the locker room, on the practice floor, now that it's moved from the non-conference from November through December to really the games that do significantly matter?
Well, like I said, we try to look at it as a whole new season. We break the season up into 3 or 4 segments, and obviously the non-conference schedule is one of those. I'm a big believer in not scheduling non-conference games mixed in with your ACC schedule. I think from here on you want to focus on the league and what a league it is. Obviously, we got some great teams in this league, but so we're trying to look at it from that standpoint. And the same way, statistically, the ACC sends us out stats every few days of where you rank in all the categories. And they send you 2 sets, one that include all your games and one that just includes your ACC games. And that's what I talked to the team about as we headed into the ACC schedule. Let's make sure that our rankings from all games is quite a bit different from our ranking now from this point on in just ACC games in areas such as taking care of the basketball, defending, rebounding, those things. Let's make sure we're showing improvement. And that's hard to do sometimes when now you're playing, again, an elite team every night. But I thought our kids, we didn't play well at Miami. Miami's very good to begin with. And then on their home court, they're really difficult to knock off. So it was a tough day. I did like the way our kids came back. We had a day off. The next 2 practices, everyone was there early. Instead of sitting around while they're getting ready for practice, they were out there on the court getting shots up. So I think that was hopefully an eye-opener for some of the young players that, oh, wow, this is what the ACC is about. And maybe that will help us the rest of the way as we go through this schedule.
Yeah, Wes, as we open up the conference play down in Coral Gables, you referenced numerous times on how difficult it is to win down at Miami. Notre Dame got knocked off down there. Duke has had some trouble. Florida State, obviously NC State has as well. A, why is it so difficult to win at Miami? B, when you're on, I don't want to call it a neutral site at Broughton High School this year, but is it difficult to engender that home court atmosphere and that advantage that you're lacking this year as Reynolds Coliseum continues to get renovated?
Yeah, there's no need in trying to make excuses. Like I said before, you got to make wherever you're playing here in Raleigh your home court, and I think the administration's done a great job of trying to make it as much of a home court for us as they can. With moving stuff back and forth from campus over to there to give it an NC State flair. But also you got, our great fans. And let me just tell you, I want to win for our fans as much as anything else because they are so loyal and so great. I'm talking about just the whole university, the Wolfpack Nation, so to speak. But we've got great fans. We've got, a band that's awesome, cheerleaders, dance team. So they make it, an atmosphere where you feel like you have that home court advantage. And, you're in your normal routine. You're at home. You're sleeping in your own bed. And I think Miami does a great job of taking advantage of that, and we got to do the same thing here.
All right, NC State hosting Georgia Tech coming up on Thursday at 7:30 special start time because of NC State's conference games at Broughton High School. We'll come back. We'll break down the first couple of ACC games, NC State at Miami and beating Wake Forest at home yesterday. We'll do that when we return. This is Court Talk from Backyard Bistro with the head coach of the women's basketball team at NC State, Wes Moore. Court Talk with Wes Moore, head coach of NC State women's basketball, continues from Backyard Bistro. And our thanks to Backyard Bistro for once again hosting us. We'll have a couple more of these during the course of the ACC season, which now, Wes, is underway. Do you and the rest of the coaching staff get a little bit more geared up for these games?
Yeah, I get geared up for every game, but there's no doubt conference play, we realize every one of these is so critical. And also, as I said before, what's tough about this league is every team has a little number beside it almost, meaning their national ranking. So you can't look on that schedule really and find an easy game or a day that you maybe can relax a little. So it is a challenge to turn around, have a couple of days to prepare and turn around back to back to back. The waves just keep coming and you don't have a chance to get your head above water and catch a breath because here comes the next one.
We don't talk a lot about this, but Jonathan Davis from your staff is here. He's central to a lot of the scouting and player personnel as you advance teams and opponents coming up. How difficult is it? Easier or more difficult to scout teams within your conference? The familiarity is there,
right.
But obviously you know each other so well you have to kind of dig a whole lot deeper.
Right. Yeah, I think they're similar in that, I always joke, football's got it made. I mean, they got one game a week to worry about, one scout to do. We got to do 2, sometimes 3, whatever. So it is a challenge. But, we distributed, obviously sign an assistant coach to each game for the season. And then they have a week or so to put their stuff together and usually clip, probably 3 or 4 games. And then I'll try to look at 1 or 2 myself, and then between all that, we'll try to narrow that down, edit it so that we're showing the players, maybe 10 minutes worth of clips, which I can make that last 30, 40 minutes, obviously. But try to condense that down and focus on the main things they run and their personnel, things they do offensively and defensively that we need to be aware of how we want to attack and that sort of thing.
To what degree when you know to cut off scouting, meanwhile, I guess what I mean is teams could run 15 or 18 different plays. Do you focus on all 18? I know how comprehensive you are, but at some point there's information overload with your players and your staff. So how do you know when to cut that off and how deep do you go?
Yeah, I mean, I think you definitely we try to keep track some of how often they run a play during a game or whatever, and obviously you got to prioritize. But it just depends how much they run. Some teams run maybe a basic set of where there isn't a whole lot of movement or necessarily integral play where there are a lot of options. Some teams may run a bunch, and so those are a little bit harder to choose what you want to show, what you want to focus on. But you just got to make some decisions on what could potentially hurt you the most, and what do you need to pay attention to and make sure your players are prepared for. I think you go back to like John Wooden. I agree. If you're really fundamental, scouting reports are not quite as critical. If you are jumping to the ball on defense and leading cutters and know how you want to play the pick on the ball, that sort of thing. But what the scout does, it does help you cheat a little bit in that hopefully you recognize something. I think about the game-winning play in the Super Bowl, the defensive back that picked off the pass from Seattle. He said, I recognized the play from practice right when the quarterback was letting the ball go, and I was able to jump the route. That's what you're hoping. You're hoping your players maybe will just recognize something and be able to react to it instinctively without having to think a whole lot.
All right, well, you talk about your team. Where do they fit on that continuum as far as fundamentals? Is scouting a lot more important for your team this year than maybe it was for last season?
Well, we've got a young team, and I don't think sometimes young teams understand how important it is. And some players really buy into it. They spend a lot of time on the scout. Some of the better teams I've coached, they got into really trying to shut down the best player on the other team or taking away a player or two that they really like to run and that is really important to their offense. Other people think, I'll just go out there and play. So it's a process, and you've got to convince your players that it is important, and this one little thing. All these ACC games now, a lot of them are going to come down to one or two possessions, and so just that little edge hopefully can help you win an extra game or two and lead to a postseason bid. So you got to sell it, and you got to get the players to buy into it. And like I said, I think that was the great thing. My first year here, we had 5 or 6 seniors that knew this is it, and so they bought in. To everything. They bought into getting it done. With a young team, it's a little tougher because they think, I'll get it done.
Urgency isn't
yeah,
quite there.
exactly. So it's a process, and hopefully they mature and understand and can get better at it.
All right, well, let's dovetail scouting and some of the ACC games NC State has already played. We won't bring up Wake because you play them again on Super Bowl Sunday when your Dallas Cowboys will not be playing. But you won't be taking on Miami the rest of the regular season. So talk about the scout of the Hurricanes, and are they a complex offense? Are they a complex defense? Where do they fall on that continuum of ACC teams as far as their style?
Well, most of theirs is defense that leads to offense. They're going to press you, again, 40 minutes. They're going to have they can go man-to-man press. They can go a 2-2-1 where they're trying a lot of times to trap more around the half-court area. Zone press, full court. So they mix it up a little bit. And like I said, that's what they live off of. They turn you over and they get layups. And then transition, offensive rebounding. They're a great offensive rebounding team. I think of them. I think of Florida State. Florida State's really turned their program around, and I think offensive rebounding is a big part of that. So, that's the thing. We talk about scouting. We talk about, taking this away, doing this or that. At some point it comes down, though, to getting it done. And boxing out, taking care of the ball, making good decisions. So it's a combination of things. Like I said, a scout can maybe help you on a few possessions, get you over the top. But at some point it comes down kind of like football. It comes down to tackling. You can know the play, but if you miss the tackle, it didn't do a whole lot of good. Same way, if you miss a box out, it doesn't matter how great a job you did on the defensive end. You give up an offensive board and a putback, it hurts the same, if not more. So that's what you got to try to do is play fundamental and then hope that maybe you can take away one or two little things that'll make the difference.
One of the things we saw yesterday in the win over Wake Forest was the scout on Taylor. She averaged about 12, 13 points a game, but your young players bought into the scout report, bought into on the personnel description of what she likes to do. How did that happen, and how do you develop that more into a pattern?
Well, again, she's a great penetrator, great attacker. She either scores herself or she sets her teammates up. And so we really tried to keep her in front of us. And I agree. I thought our kids did a good job of that. I know she had a rough day shooting the basketball. And so, that's an example of where, hopefully you can take away something and make it tough on that player. But, again, sometimes it's luck, too. Sometimes they just have a bad shooting day. But definitely our kids have done a pretty good job. And I thought Dominique did a great job on Motley down at Miami where she only scored 5 points and was averaging 17, 20, something like that. So, again, Good job by our young kids.
All right, we'll come back. Last segment of Court Talk with Wes Moore, head coach of NC State women's basketball. We'll preview the games coming up this week. NC State home with Georgia Tech, on the road against Pitt, which gave Notre Dame some troubles yesterday as well. Interesting ACC conference as well. We'll talk about that. And get in some fun stuff with Wes Moore when we return to Backyard Bistro. Court Talk with Wes Moore of NC State. Court Talk with Wes Moore from Backyard Bistro wraps up on this Monday afternoon. Fairly chilly Monday afternoon.
Yeah, what happened?
A little bit warmer for NC State since they knocked off Wake Forest for their first conference win yesterday. Well, Wes Moore, let's talk, I guess, about the upcoming week for NC State. Well, first off, start with Georgia Tech, which is similar to Miami teams in terms of their length, and they like to attack, obviously, and press defensively. But they've lost their star from last year, transferred out, but they're coming in 0-2 in the league. So, they have that sense of urgency we spoke of.
Well, again, you got to also look at who they've played. Obviously, two of the better teams, not only in our league, but in the country, in Notre Dame and Louisville. So Georgia Tech's got a nice team. They're, again, another team that really athletic, get after you, get in the passing lanes, make it hard for you to run your stuff. They'll pick you up full court and press you some. Aggressive on the offensive boards. So, again, it's going to be one of those games where we got to take care of the basketball against their pressure and against their press. We got to try to keep them in front of us because they're athletic in a lot of spots, and then box them out because, again, they're very strong on the offensive board. So, I know it sounds easy, but, simple maybe, but it's a big challenge when you're playing teams of this caliber and as athletic as they are.
Are there any characteristics or tendencies that we've seen from the teams that NC State has played already that apply to Georgia Tech, or is this a brand-new scout and a brand-new set of defensive principles we'll see?
Yeah, again, I think most teams that do that are similar. I think Georgia Tech does a lot more half-court trapping. They'll be in a normal defense, and then all of a sudden they're jumping you, whether it be out of a zone or whether out of man, they trap you. So at some point it comes down to you just have to make good decisions and play basketball. I can't, as a coach, if they're running a certain defense, a lot of times you can say, okay, this is what's going to be there. This is where we want to get the ball. This is what we want to look for. When people are just randomly trapping, at some point it's kind of in the player's hands. They're going to have to make good decisions with it. I always stress, let's try to get people in certain spots when we do get trapped. Make sure we kind of try to form a diamond, so to speak, so you have three options to pass out of it. And then once we make the easy pass out of the trap, we don't want to try to hit a home run out of a trap. After we make the easy pass out of the trap, then we want to swing it or look towards the basket and let's make them pay for trapping. Let's burn them.
We talked a few weeks ago about when NC State's offense was sputtering a little bit about maybe trying to simplify things for the Wolfpack, for the younger players especially. Has that been the case, or have they grown more into advanced roles in their first and second years?
Yeah, I think we haven't added as much this year. There's things I know some of our veterans are saying, well, why aren't we running this, or why we hadn't put this in yet? Well, again, we got some young kids that are still trying to grasp what we're doing. And, I've probably learned a little something this year. I think in the future, in the fall, when we can actually start having the full team on the court, which is around September 15th, in the past, we've concentrated on individual development during that time. We may need to start putting a little more stuff in the fall. So that's an adjustment that I think maybe I could make next year to make it a little bit easier on some of the young players. Again, you want to make sure they understand what we're doing. And sometimes I assume too much. I think, heck, I've been running this for 25 years. You ought to know it.
Sure.
I need to make sure we can run what we're running right now before we start trying to add stuff. But it seems like every game you see, okay, this team's doing this. I think this will work. Let's add this. And so you're adding stuff as you go. And, a team that overplays and denies, we may want to put in a couple little backdoor looks to see if we can take advantage of that. But like I said, against Georgia Tech, we're going to have to work on, making ourselves available for the pass out of the trap. and then really looking to swing the ball and make them pay for doing it. So that'll be a point of emphasis this week, which is not so much a set play as just I guess a philosophy and a theory there.
Okay, well, and you're all about theories. Let's talk about the theory of the growth of a couple of your freshmen. Two have really stepped to the forefront over the last few weeks. Camille Anderson got her first collegiate start yesterday against Wake Forest, played 13 minutes, but played some critical times during that contest. And also Dee Rogers, who we've seen her blossom over the last 3 or 4 weeks. Did you expect to see them kind of race up this learning curve so quickly, especially in the case of Dee?
Well, I think in both cases they're still learning. It's a process again in that regard, in that you got to play a lot harder, and you can't take plays off. You can't relax. In high school, you were probably the best player out there a lot of times, and you could get away with that. Now you've got 10 great players on the court, and you can't relax. And so and also every day in practice, showing up consistently and giving that effort that'll prepare you for a game. And sometimes players don't get that. Is we're going to have nights where we don't shoot the ball well. It's going to be defense, rebounding. It's going to be our effort that's going to bail us out on a night like that. Well, to develop that where you show up every day for a game, you also got to do that in practice so that you're prepared to do that. So in Camille's case, it was a lot about we wanted to get Mai on the wing. Mai Spencer, get her back on the wing a little bit. She's played there the first 2 years here at State. Seems to be more comfortable. Out of necessity, out of the injury to Kayla Ely, we've had to play her at point. So this is a way maybe to at least to start the game, get her on the wing some. And so that was a big decision with that. I thought Camille had been doing a good job of taking care of the ball and of knocking down the open three. She did hit the only three she took yesterday. Was a little disappointed in a couple of turnovers, so that's an area we'll have to keep working on. Dee Rogers, again, super athlete, great offensive rebounder, does a lot of good things. Doesn't know exactly everything we're doing yet, so sometimes she can be the one that kind of breaks down us on defense or offense by not knowing exactly what her role is. So I've got to do a better job as a coach making sure she knows that. And then also her effort in practice has got to be more consistent. She has days where she maybe relaxes a little bit. So, but she's a freshman, and that's going to take time. Again, got high hopes for Dee. I think she can be a great player here, and we'll just keep bringing her along.
With her small amount of minutes compared to your other post, she could very well wind up as your top offensive rebounder over the course of the year. What is it about that innate ability for her to find that crease, find that crack where the ball, before it hits the rim, she happens to be in that right spot? How does that happen?
Well, that's it. If it's man-to-man, you got to find a gap. I mean, find a way to get around your man that's trying to box you out, and she's athletic enough, quick enough, and goes hard enough. She wants to go get an offensive rebound, and that's half the battle. So she's really good at getting around people instead of just standing behind and waiting to jump over their back. And then against the zone, she finds a gap, as you said, or a crease, and she gets through there, gets to the rim, and makes things happen. And we need that. We're looking for some easy buckets. We're looking for some easy points, and Dee can find those for us.
Yeah, are there more minutes in her future?
Well, I hope so. And again, it's going to be up to her as well. With all of them, they got to be able to practice consistently, and then they got to know what's going on and not relax on the court in a game.
All right, before we wrap things up on this last segment of Court Talk with Wes Moore, you look ahead of this schedule, Wes, and it is the ACC, but it's pretty daunting when you take a look. Georgia Tech here on Thursday, at Pitt, then you go to Duke, home with Louisville, at Virginia Tech, which has to be the biggest surprise, I think, of any team in the league at this stage. And you wrap up the month with Virginia here and North Carolina coming in. I know that's a lot to chew on here with this final question. But
can I change my drink order? I don't know if this tea is going to handle that.
Bartender.
Yeah.
What I guess tell me your thoughts when you know that's the next road, the couple of weeks for a team that frankly isn't quite that deep yet.
That's part of it. When you sign up for that as a coach, as players, when you come to this league, you know it's going to be a challenge every night. You're going to be playing against the best in the country. You can either shy away from it or you can step up to it. And so we're going to keep trying to step up to it. It's a process. We're young. We'll go through some bumps probably, but we got to just keep grinding and hopefully this team will continue to get better, and we'll be playing our best basketball in March.
And it's a big recruiting tool for you and the coaching staff, right? If you want to play in the best conference in America, you come play in the ACC. Well, they get here, and now this is their opportunity to see it firsthand.
Yeah. You asked for it. Here we go.
All right, Wes, thanks for your time.
Thank
We'll
you.
catch up with you
Thanks,
next month.
Patrick.
Good luck the rest of the month. All right, Wes Moore, head coach of NC State. That's going to wrap things up for Court Talk here from Backyard Bistro. Our great thanks to the great crowd on hand here today. Our thanks to the hospitality and the folks here at Backyard Bistro. So for Tim Uttrup, for David Modlin, the engineer, for the entire production team who's joined us here at Backyard Bistro, I'm Patrick Keenis. Again, NC State hosting Georgia Tech on Thursday night at 7:30 at Broughton High School. For Wes and Backyard Bistro, so long from Raleigh.